first sketch that I made brings back a kind of an interesting memory because it was based not on the eye, but the sound I experienced when I was age 12. I built this modest treehouse, which was my sanctuary during the wartime because we were in an internment camp. This one evening in the treehouse, I heard this wind. It was a kind of a half wind, half breeze, and it was really an eerie sound going through the leaves and the trees, but at the same time very comforting. And lying there in the treehouse, I was imagining that I'm a soldier, you know. And this is evening after a real fierce battle. And I was feeling like lots of soldiers, you know, really feeling fear and hope that this whole thing would go away, but admiring this sound. So the sound of that experience is what I drew.
It may have been poetic irony or fate that had a hand in entrusting Raymond Moriyama with the noble responsibility of searching for the soul of a new Canadian war museum. One of Canada's most acclaimed architects, he is famous for his subtle and graceful designs. The mastermind behind such architectural works of art as the Ontario Science Centre, the Bata Shoe Museum, the Saudi Arabian National Museum in Riyadh, and the Canadian Embassy in Tokyo. But this building may well be remembered as his crowning architectural jewel. His cathartic journey into destruction, suffering, healing, and hope challenges all of our perceptions of war and our military past.
I guess I tend to judge other nations or any nation by three things. You know, one is the arts, second is civility, and third is deeds. And the War Museum is about the deeds of Canadians.
So to have a war museum is a reminder to people that the world wasn't always the way they think it is now. It's a reminder that once upon a time, Canadians thought that their values were worth defending. It's a reminder that history matters. It's a reminder that we live in peace and freedom because people were willing to put their lives on the line to make sure we could continue to do that.
War is an awful thing. We know it's awful. There are glorious things that occur, but it isn't the glorification of war that interests us. What is important is to put military history into a footing and a context so that we can understand the country, how society has shaped itself, how immigrants have come, but also how Canada has participated in the wider world.
I felt very deeply that the Canadians I know and respect are strong, but they're modest. And I'm paraphrasing Jack Branston, who said ordinary Canadians doing extraordinary deeds in extraordinary time. So that started to set the tone towards a kind of a modest answer. What we did was looked at images of Canada from the Atlantic to the Pacific and used images to see are there things that we could use to get the form of the building.
Creating great architecture is not achieved by one person alone. It's a spiritual and conceptual marathon involving many talented people who are driven by perfection.
Part of this, I believe the challenge would be how...
Sharing similar architectural philosophies and vision, Raymond's Toronto firm of Moriyama and Tashima joined forces with the Ottawa firm of Griffiths, Rankin, Cook. And together, searched for the War Museum's soul.
One thing that's outstanding still, that has to be.
Really, the collaboration was, in my opinion, very clearly the fact that Raymond is number one and I'm number two. I remember particularly at the very early days him phoning me and saying, have you done some sketches yet? And I said, whoa, no, I thought you were. And he said, yeah, but I'd like you to do sketches and we should talk together and work together. And that has been the very basis of how we have worked the whole way through.
We always have a practice, what we call the 3 L's. The first one is listen, and the second L is listen and learn. The final L is about earning leadership in design. Then take the big sponge and squeezing it, distilling all the information, and then try to apply it.
We had decided very early on in the process that we wanted to consult Canadians as part of developing, obviously, a national museum. The most significant thing that came out of it was really the whole vision for this building. When we did those sessions, people kept talking to us about the fact that the building had to reflect something about after war, after military events. In other words, the hope for peace, the hope for ongoing peaceful relations.
What became really clear was, first of all, how different the male and female responded. The male talked about the heroics, the good guys, the bad guys, the good times, the bad times. Women spoke about it much more universally. Young ladies said, you know, I walked across Beaumont Hamel, and when I got to the other side, I looked down, and my shoes were covered with red mud. And I said, my gosh, if I had walked across that field after the battle or after even the war, that would have been red blood.
The peaceful, undulating, grass-covered hills and valleys that now hauntingly characterize the battlefield park at Beaumont-Hamel, France, are a far cry from the mortar-torn death trenches of the great offensive known as the Battle of the Somme in 1916. Here, on July 1st, anticipating little resistance, the 1st Newfoundland Regiment attacked German strongholds. In less than 30 minutes, the Newfoundlanders were all but annihilated. Only 68 men of the regiment's 801 survived without serious wounds. The Battle of the Somme raged for 141 days. When it was over, little ground had changed hands, and more than 1 million Allied and German soldiers were either wounded or dead.
A statement made by a lady was an impeccable architect will trade some of his ego and embrace the soul of the nation he serves.
In the domain of high-priced architects, ego plays a large role in creating audacious and spectacular statements. In contrast, a Raymond Moriyama creation is at peace with its surroundings, meticulously detailed in a way that reflects his omnipresent spirituality and gentle nature. Raymond's unpretentious approach to life and his work was an important ingredient in turning this project around in less than 4 years, and ready for its opening on the 60th anniversary of VE Day. The process of unearthing the appropriate symbolic theme slowly evolved as the team delved deeper and deeper into the dramatic stories and images of war involving Canadians.
Looking at images of Beaumont Hamel, one of my favorite images, the one with the Mountie walking across the present-day for Mount Hummel. The contrast of the red and the green grass is so clear. And poems like Sandberg's Grass, I'm the grass, let me work, covering all these damages, were wonderful sort of inspiration for us.
Pile the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. Shovel them under and let me work. I am the grass. I cover all. And pile them high at Gettysburg. And pile them high at Ypres and Verdun. Shovel them under and let me work. 2 years, 10 years. And passengers ask the conductor, "What place is this? Where are we now?" I am the grass. Let me work. Carl Sandburg.
And looking at images like Passchendaele, where Sassoon said, I died in hell, and it was Passchendaele.
The 1917 Battle of Passchendaele remains an epic reminder of war in its most brutal and senseless form. It was a slaughter fought in Belgian mud so thick that men drowned in it. When it was over, tens of thousands were dead. The following spring, corpses rose out of the softening mud. 2 bodies, one Canadian, one German, were found attached together, still grappling with one another in death.
There was an aerial photograph that showed this town that over a period of 6 or 7 months, the town just slowly disappeared as a result of the massive amounts of artillery until finally there was a slight tracery of the original paths or the roads of the town, and the rest was just kind of this scarified landscape. There was this kind of connection that started to emerge architecturally between how we thought about the concrete work and how we thought about trying to make that kind of connection to those kinds of images.
Images such as twisted bodies strewn across blood-soaked fields of mud. Lifeless eyes of damaged spirits. Unimaginable heroic deeds, and the cold, brutal machinery of war also had a lasting and profound impact on the architects. Painted by Canada's battlefield artists, their powerful and stirring depictions of the horrors of war provided an intimate connection that could only be imparted by those who were there to witness firsthand humanity's inhumanity. From one of the world's greatest collections of war art, numbering more than 13,000 pieces, inspiration was drawn. And a new home would be built to house this extraordinary collection, of which sadly only a fraction has ever been seen by the public.
Quite a number of the paintings were quite inspirational in their geometrical senses of machines and people in movement and action, and yet buried in the ground or inclined over hills.
What came out of this emerged this idea that there was devastation, but there was survival, rebirth, hybridization. And so the architectural concept became regenerative landscape.
The theme of regeneration was a stroke of genius that nobly captured the raw emotions of the building's body and soul. The selection of Le Breton Flats, just west of Parliament Hill as the site, signified a new lease on life and regeneration for a piece of land that had been so sorely abused. Formerly a thriving lumber mill community in 1860, it had been devastated by the Great Ottawa Fire of 1900. building itself up again into a working-class neighborhood. Its low-rent housing and light industry was expropriated by the National Capital Commission in the early 1960s. During the next 4 decades, Le Breton Flats deteriorated into a controversial, empty tract of contaminated land.
We had been working very hard on the development of this site since the expropriation days, and it's one of the most beautiful sites in the capital of the country. It's half a kilometers from Parliament Hill, and in my view, it would have been very unfortunate if the site had been left empty. In 2000, the federal government gave the green light to the NCC to proceed with the cleaning up of the site. We've given back the river to the population, and I have to say that the architect has worked very diligently with the NCC's advisors and the NCC board, making it so that we could access the river by going through the building, and by permitting also that people that do want to have a view of the river can walk over the building and have a feel of what the importance of the site is all about.
One side, the easterly part, was facing the city, the parliamentary precinct, and there was a sense of urbanness. But the westerly side is much more pastoral. So, my thought became, how do we regenerate this and fuse it into the city? It's the melding of the pastoral into the urbanity, and that's how the building rises really out of the river and creeps upward, and it's all grass until it gets closer to the easterly edge, and where it hybridizes into copper, which is the vernacular of Ottawa, where the towers are covered in patinated copper and sharp lines. Very simple.
Raymond's clarity of vision and relentless passion guided his team in developing an unprecedented amount of designs.
Officially, we did, first round, 64 designs, different design, and we made a little model for each one. Some of the models, some people would look at it and say, well, gee, that's a lump of clay. And we cut that down to 24, and then we reduced that 24 down to 12. And then we presented the 12 to the client and said, okay, pick what you want.
I didn't like the first designs that I saw. I thought they were pretty pedestrian, frankly. But I guess I didn't understand that the architect puts out a plan and an idea, and then people push and pull and tug, and somehow over time it changes.
The final 3, we did a total elaborate sort of rendering and the plan, and put them on the website.
One was a very cubistic approach with slashes and cuts in it. Another one was very much, I suppose some people called it the ski ramp, but it was of parallels, which reminded one of certain war machines that were digging into the ground and so on. And then the third one was a quiet but strong design with landscape being a very strong feature on it.
We received more than 1,200 email responses, and it was fascinating. When you have only 4% negative, that's really a good sign.
The members of the board expressed to the architect, and he in turn, and his staff in turn, were very open. And what they expressed was, we like this building that rises out of the ground. We like this notion of regeneration as expressed through the building, but can't you come up with some vertical element, something that swoops upwards and that more forcefully embraces both Parliament in the distance and also expresses the notion of hope? Because the fact is, humans, when they want to express hope, tend to look upwards, look towards the heavens, look towards the skies, reach for the sky. It didn't take any time at all. And Raymond said, oh yes, of course there's ways of doing that. I'm going to come up with some ways.
What we did was we evaluated everything and then came up with the 65th scheme.
Architecture is an organic art form fraught with compromises. Not only did Raymond have to make concessions to satisfy the desires of those who hired him, but he also had to accommodate the challenges posed by the site itself.
We had a very interesting site condition. Well, first of all, it was the old industrial site. The soil was totally contaminated, and we had to remove everything right down to bedrock. And Ottawa is an earthquake zone, and I didn't want to disturb this by blasting. A site condition like that is always a gift or a curse, and I didn't want to create a curse out of this.
Raymond's sensitivity to environmental context supported his decision not to design such things as monolithic towers that would dominate and perhaps curse the site. Instead, its bunker-like profile would blend effortlessly into its natural surroundings.
If you look at this building carefully, it's very compact. You know, it's basically like two split level doing this, and ramps connect those. The area of the building, you know, although it's about 450,000 square feet, you know, over 40,000 square meter, the land coverage is just about less than half. So it's very compact. The building is largely concrete, and we wanted that concrete mass for energy conservation.
There's 35,000 or 32,000 cubic meters of concrete, and that is a lot of concrete, particularly in the forms and shapes which we felt had this analogy of bunker connection.
It was a question of trying to get a kind of a roughness without getting sloppy, totally sloppy. I wanted the war look, you know, not a polished art gallery look. So that kind of attitude helped the budget too.
From the onset, this was never to be a conventional museum. Its destiny was to be an honorable place of symbolic meaning to hold the history of Canada's conflicts. Stories of bravery, compassion, and of great pain and sorrow. Its external physical references to war are often apparent, but others,